My name is Miriam Adaeze from Warri, Delta State, Nigeria. For 14 years, I served inside a witchcraft coven that operated across the Niger Delta region as what we called a bedroom infiltration specialist. My singular assignment was to establish invisible altars inside the sleeping quarters of believers, using everyday objects they would never think to question. These altars were not physical structures visible to the natural eye. They were spiritual gateways that gave our coven legal access to monitor, afflict, and systematically destroy the health of believers while they slept. I was exceptionally skilled at this work. I was trained by senior witches who had been operating in this assignment for decades before me. They taught me how to identify vulnerable believers. They taught me how to study their habits, map their homes, and survey their bedrooms with precision. They taught me how to transform ordinary household objects into potent spiritual weapons. And they taught me how to establish altars that would remain active and undisturbed for years, without the believer ever once suspecting that anything was there. During my 14 years in active service to the coven, I personally established altars in more than 200 bedrooms belonging to believers. I watched those people deteriorate. I watched them visit hospital after hospital and receive no answers. I watched them pray and fast and cry out for breakthrough while nothing changed. I watched their health decline year after year, and I knew exactly why. The altars were still active, the portals were still open, and as long as those altars remained in place, those believers would never experience healing or freedom. But the power of the divine broke every chain over my life. I was set free. And now I spend my days exposing the secrets of the kingdom of darkness. In this testimony, I am revealing the 3 hidden altars that witches establish inside Christian bedrooms to hold believers in perpetual sickness. These are altars that most believers sleep beside every single night without the faintest awareness that they are there. Altars that drain the body, obstruct healing, and give demons legal standing to afflict people with diseases that no doctor can diagnose and no medication can cure. If you have been battling chronic sickness, if you have visited hospitals and they cannot identify what is wrong with you, if you take medication and nothing changes, if you wake up exhausted regardless of how many hours you sleep, if you experience mysterious pains that shift from one part of your body to another, this message was made for you. Because what I am about to reveal will explain why your body has been under sustained attack and how to shut these altars down permanently. Let me begin by explaining how bedroom altars function inside the kingdom of darkness. The bedroom is the most strategically valuable room in any home. It is where you are most vulnerable. It is where you sleep, where you dream, where your spirit is most exposed. Your defenses are lowered, your guard is down, and while your body rests, your spirit remains active. This is the window the enemy exploits. When we wanted to destroy a believer's health, we did not attack them inside a house of worship. We understood better than that. The sacred atmosphere, the intercessions of fellow believers, the spiritual covering in that environment made successful attacks extremely difficult. We did not attack them during prayer either. During prayer, believers are covered, their authority is activated, their shield is raised. We learned through painful experience that engaging a believer mid-prayer was a losing strategy. Instead, we attacked them in their bedrooms while they slept, when their minds were at rest and their spirits were exposed. This was our window. This was when we could infiltrate. This was when we could establish our strongholds. And the instrument we used to gain access was the altar. These altars were not constructed with human hands. We did not walk physically into someone's bedroom and build anything. That would have been impossible. Instead, we used what was already present. We identified objects that believers had already introduced into their own bedrooms, objects they trusted completely, objects they used daily, and we converted those objects into spiritual weapons directed against their own bodies. Once an object became an altar, it created a portal, a legal doorway, a spiritual gateway between the physical realm and the demonic realm. And through that doorway, we could dispatch sickness, affliction, disease, and every manner of physical torment into the body of the person sleeping in that room. The believer would have no explanation for their suffering. They would visit doctors, submit to tests, try medication, but nothing would resolve it, because the sickness was not natural in its origin, it was spiritual. And the root of it was the altar positioned in their bedroom. The altars gave us legal access. This is the most critical thing to understand. In the spirit realm, demonic forces cannot assault anyone at will. There must be legal standing. There must be an entry point. There must be something that grants them the right to operate. Bedroom altars provided exactly that legal standing. Once the altar was established, we had the right to send affliction. The believer had unknowingly granted us permission by keeping that object in their sleeping space. That was my specialty for 14 years. Bedroom infiltration. I studied believers. I observed what they brought into their bedrooms. When I identified the right objects, I established altars on them, and once those altars were active, those believers became sick and remained sick. No matter how much they prayed, no matter how much they fasted, no matter how many deliverance sessions they attended, they could not get well because the altar was still in place and the portal was still open. Now let me tell you about the 3 most powerful bedroom altars that we deployed to keep believers in chronic sickness. The first hidden altar is the mirror altar. Mirrors are not merely reflective surfaces. In the spirit realm, mirrors function as portals, gateways between the physical and spiritual worlds. When a mirror is positioned in a specific way inside a bedroom, especially when it directly faces the bed, it becomes an active altar that we in the kingdom of darkness use to monitor and afflict believers throughout the night. Let me explain precisely how this operates. When you sleep, your spirit is active. Even as your body rests, your inner spirit is engaged, processing, dreaming, spiritually exposed. If there is a mirror directly facing your bed, your spirit is being projected into that mirror every single night. We could access you through that projection. We could monitor your dreams. We could plant images and impressions. We could dispatch spirits of infirmity that would enter your body while you slept and establish themselves in specific organs, joints, and bodily systems. I specialized in mirror altars. I was specifically trained to identify believers who had mirrors facing their beds. Once I identified one, I would establish an altar on that mirror in the spirit realm. The moment that altar was activated, the believer's health would begin a slow and consistent deterioration, mysterious fatigue that would not lift, pains that migrated from place to place, illnesses that no doctor could diagnose or explain. And what made mirror altars so devastatingly effective was this: the believer would never suspect the mirror. They would visit hospitals, submit to tests, try every available medication, seek deliverance ministry, but they would never think to remove the mirror from their bedroom. So the altar remained, the portal stayed open, and the sickness continued uninterrupted. Let me tell you about Sister Grace from Saplé. She was an intercessor in her local assembly, a woman who spent hours daily in prayer. But for 7 consecutive years, she battled chronic fatigue and joint pain that no physician could explain. She had visited 5 different hospitals. She had explored traditional remedies. She had attended multiple deliverance services. Nothing worked. I was assigned to her case while I was still actively serving the coven. My role was to maintain the altar that was sustaining her sickness. And that altar was a mirror, a large mirror she herself had hung on the wall directly facing her bed 10 years earlier, because she enjoyed seeing herself when she woke each morning. She had absolutely no idea what she had created. When I first accessed her bedroom in the spirit realm, I saw the altar clearly. It was massive and deeply established. Monitoring spirits were stationed at that mirror every single night. They would observe her sleep. They would enter her dreams. And every night they dispatched spirits of infirmity directly into her body, specifically targeting her joints and energy systems. I watched her for months. I saw her wake every morning exhausted despite sleeping for 8 hours. I watched her struggle to rise because the pain in her knees and elbows was so severe. I watched her take painkillers that only temporarily dulled what we were causing. And I watched her pray, declaring healing, anointing herself with oil, standing on the sacred writings. But nothing changed because the altar was still present. One night something shifted. Sister Grace had a dream. In the dream she saw herself lying in her own bedroom, but standing in front of the mirror were dark figures with glowing eyes watching her, studying her with silent intensity. When she woke from that dream, she was deeply shaken. She knew what she had seen was real. The following morning she contacted her pastor and described the dream. The pastor, a man of genuine spiritual discernment, asked her one question: "Do you have a mirror facing your bed?" She confirmed that she did. He said, "Remove it today. That mirror is a portal. Cover it or take it out of your bedroom completely." She obeyed without delay. That same day, she dismounted the mirror and moved it to her storage room, covering it with a cloth. And that night, I and every other spirit assigned to her could not gain access. The altar was gone. The portal was sealed, We attempted to re-establish access but could not, because she had removed the physical object that had been granting us legal entry. Within 3 days her energy began returning. The chronic fatigue that had gripped her for 7 years began to lift noticeably. Within 2 weeks her joint pain was completely gone. Within 1 month she had returned to full strength. Her doctors were stunned. In the spirit realm, we understood exactly what had happened. She had dismantled the altar, she had sealed the portal, and we had lost every legal claim to her body. That is the power of a mirror altar, and Sister Grace's experience is not exceptional. Let me tell you about Brother Emmanuel, a young businessman in Port Harcourt, 32 years old, prospering in his work and active in his local church. But for 2 years he had been experiencing something deeply disturbing. Every single night without exception he would have the same nightmare. In the dream he would see himself lying in his bed while dark figures stood around him, motionless, silent, simply watching him with unwavering intensity. He would wake from these dreams drenched in sweat, his heart pounding violently, and throughout each day he would feel observed, monitored, as though unseen eyes were following him everywhere. His workplace productivity collapsed. His relationships suffered. He became consumed by paranoia and anxiety. His pastor prayed with him repeatedly. Nothing resolved the nightmares. I was not personally assigned to Brother Emmanuel's case, but I knew of it because the witch overseeing him operated within our coven's network. She had established a mirror altar in his bedroom 3 years earlier, shortly after he moved into his apartment. The mirror was built into his wardrobe, a large sliding door mirror that faced his bed directly. He had never thought anything of it. The furniture came with the rental property, but in the spirit realm, that mirror was an enormous and highly active portal. Every night, monitoring spirits would stand before it and project themselves into his dreams, appearing as dark figures, shadows, watchers. Their assignment was not simply to observe him, it was to systematically break him mentally, to fill him with fear, to make him feel perpetually unsafe, perpetually monitored, perpetually without peace. This strategy held him captive for 2 years. His mental health deteriorated severely. He began avoiding sleep out of dread. He would remain awake until 3 or 4 in the morning, and only when total exhaustion overtook him would he finally surrender to sleep, only for the nightmares to begin immediately. Then one Sunday, a visiting minister preached specifically about spiritual portals in homes. He spoke directly about mirrors and how they can function as gateways for monitoring spirits. Something leapt inside Brother Emmanuel's spirit. Something said, "That is you. That is what has been happening." After the service, he went directly home. He walked into his bedroom and stood looking at the mirror on his wardrobe. For the first time, he saw it differently. He felt something dark radiating from it, a weight, an oppression that he recognized as having been present all along. Without hesitation, he covered the entire mirror with a bed sheet and secured it completely with tape so that not a single reflective surface remained visible. That night, for the first time in 2 years, he slept through the entire night without a single nightmare. The dark figures did not appear. The sensation of being watched was completely absent. The next day he removed the mirrored wardrobe from his bedroom entirely and replaced it. From that day forward, the nightmares never returned. His peace was fully restored. His mental clarity returned. His productivity surged. His relationships healed. In the spirit realm, the witch assigned to him had lost every access point. The portal was closed. The altar was gone. This is what mirror altars do. They are not only about physical sickness, they are about mental torment, spiritual oppression, and emotional destruction. If you have a mirror directly facing your bed, you are providing the enemy with a weapon aimed at your mind, your emotions, and your body. That is why the very first action you must take is to go into your bedroom right now and examine every mirror. If any reflective surface directly faces the place where you sleep, it is functioning as a portal. It is giving demonic forces access to your health, your sleep, and your spiritual life. Remove it or reposition it immediately. Do not delay. Do not treat this as insignificant. In the spirit realm, that mirror is an active altar being used against you every single night. The sacred writings declare that the enemy operates through deception, blinding minds, creating access through ignorance. But today, ignorance ends. When you remove the mirror, you remove the access. You seal the portal. Your mind, your sleep, and your health come under the full protection of the divine. And I want you to do something right now. In the comments section below, write this: "I close every mirror portal in my bedroom." Write it now. Because when you make that declaration publicly, you are serving formal notice to the kingdom of darkness that you are no longer operating in ignorance. Do not simply watch this video and scroll on. Participate. Write it in the comments. I close every mirror portal in my bedroom. Your breakthrough is connected to your declaration. Now let me tell you about the second hidden altar, the electronics altar. This one is more subtle but carries equal destructive force. Many believers sleep with their phones, tablets, or laptops positioned directly beside them, on the nightstand, beneath the pillow, on the mattress itself. And they have absolutely no awareness that these devices, when positioned in certain ways and used for certain purposes before sleep, become altars that we deploy to drain health and implant sickness systematically. Here is how the electronics altar functions. Electronic devices emit frequencies. You are aware of this in the natural. But what most believers do not understand is that these frequencies generate vibrations in the spirit realm. And those vibrations attract specific categories of spirits. Spirits of restlessness, spirits of anxiety, and spirits of infirmity. When you scroll through content late at night, especially content that is not spiritually edifying, specific videos, certain conversations, particular imagery, you are opening spiritual doors. You are creating entry points. And when you place that device beside your body and surrender to sleep, those entry points remain fully active. The frequencies continue, the vibrations continue, and the spirits attracted by what you were consuming now have unobstructed access to your body throughout the night. I was trained to identify believers who slept with electronics positioned close to their heads. We refer to these as frequency altars. Once I identified a believer with this habit, I would establish an altar on the spiritual frequency that the device was emitting, and through that frequency I could dispatch specific spirits directly into the sleeping body. The most common afflictions we delivered through frequency altars were insomnia and nervous system disorders. Believers would begin experiencing sleepless nights. Their minds would race, their hearts would palpitate, they would wake multiple times each night. And during daylight hours, they would live with anxiety, persistent headaches, and a pervasive sense of unease they could not trace to any natural cause. And what made this altar so devastatingly effective was this. Most believers would never connect their suffering to their phones. They would blame workplace stress. They would blame personal circumstances. They would attribute it to diet or emotional strain. But they would never think to simply move their device to another room. So the altar remained, the portal stayed open, and the affliction continued unchecked. Let me tell you about Pastor Michael. He led a congregation in a city in Edo State, a man of genuine spiritual authority who preached with power and shepherded his people with dedication. But privately, he was suffering profoundly. For 3 consecutive years, he had been battling severe insomnia. He would lie in bed for hours with his mind racing through thoughts he could not quiet. When he finally did surrender to sleep, he would wake 2 hours later, heart pounding, body soaked in perspiration, mind already racing. Doctors prescribed sleeping aids. The medication produced drowsiness, but not genuine rest. They diagnosed him with anxiety disorder and added prescription medication. Nothing resolved the core problem. He was chronically exhausted. His ministry was suffering. The authority and clarity that had once characterized his preaching had diminished because he was perpetually depleted. I was not personally assigned to Pastor Michael, but a witch from within my coven's network was. She specialized in attacking spiritual leaders, and her primary instrument was the frequency altar. Pastor Michael had an established nightly habit. He would lie in bed and scroll through his phone for at least 1 hour before sleep. He read the news, watched video content, responded to messages from his congregation members, and when he was finally ready to sleep, he would place his phone on his nightstand 6 inches from his head and close his eyes. What he did not know was that the witch overseeing his case had established an altar on the frequency his phone emitted. Every night as he scrolled, she and her assigned spirits monitored what he was engaging with, and the moment he fell asleep with his phone so close to his head, they would send spirits of restlessness and anxiety directly into his mind and nervous system. This continued for 3 years. He prayed, he fasted, he sought deliverance ministry, but nothing resolved the problem because he never addressed the altar. He never moved his phone. He never interrupted the habit that was sustaining the enemy's access. Then a prophet visited his church. After the service, the prophet drew Pastor Michael aside privately and spoke with unusual specificity. He said, "The Eternal is showing me that you need to remove all electronic devices from your bedroom at night. Do not sleep with your phone near your head. The enemy is using it as a point of entry into your rest." Pastor Michael was skeptical. The instructions seemed strange, but he respected the spiritual authority of the messenger and chose to obey. That very night, he left his phone in the living room. He went to bed without it, and for the first time in 3 years, he slept through the entire night, 6 hours of uninterrupted, genuine rest. He woke with a clarity and a physical freshness he had nearly forgotten was possible. He continued the practice. Every night, the phone remained in another room. Within 2 weeks, the insomnia was completely resolved. The anxiety dissolved. The heart palpitations ceased. His energy was restored. The authority returned to his preaching. In the spirit realm, the witch overseeing his case had lost her access point entirely. The physical device was no longer near his body. The portal was sealed. Let me tell you about one more person who broke free from this altar. Her name was Chiamaka, a 28-year-old teacher who loved her work, her students, and the divine with genuine sincerity. But for 18 months she had been battling something that made no rational sense. Every single night at approximately 2 in the morning, she would wake with her heart pounding, not simply beating quickly, but hammering so forcefully she could hear it in her ears. Her hands would tremble, her body would shake, and a wave of overwhelming dread would wash over her, a sense that something catastrophic was imminent. She visited a cardiologist who ran every available cardiac test, electrocardiograms, echocardiograms, stress tests. Every result came back completely normal. Her heart was in perfect health. But the episodes continued with mechanical precision. Every night, 2 in the morning, the same terror, the same physical assault. She began dreading sleep. She would delay it as long as possible because she knew what was coming. One of the witches in a neighboring coven network had established a frequency altar specifically targeting Chimaka. The assignment was precise: send spirits of terror through the frequency of her phone while she slept. Chiamaka had a deeply established habit of falling asleep while watching videos on her phone. She would lie in bed scrolling until her eyes grew too heavy to stay open, then fall asleep with the phone still on her chest or resting beside her pillow. And that phone, with its constant signal, its constant frequency, had become the entry point. Every night at 2 in the morning, spirits of panic and terror were dispatched through that frequency directly into her cardiovascular system. They would cause her heart to accelerate, her body to convulse with trembling, and her mind to flood with irrational and overwhelming fear. The precision and consistency of the attacks had Chiamaka believing she was losing her sanity. One evening, she attended a midweek teaching at a local church. The instructor was addressing spiritual warfare and how demonic forces gain access through specific entry points in a believer's life. He mentioned electronic devices and explained how they can become portals when not handled with spiritual intentionality. He said specifically, if you sleep with your phone beside your body, you may be granting the enemy access to your rest, your dreams, and your physical health. Something stirred immediately in Chiamaka's spirit. She had never considered her phone to be a spiritual matter. She thought of it purely as a tool. But that night she decided to test the principle. She went home, plugged her phone into a charger in the living room, and went to bed without it for the first time in years. 2 in the morning arrived. No pounding, no shaking, no terror. She slept straight through until morning. She could barely process what had just happened. For the first time in 18 months, she had slept in complete peace. She maintained the practice. Every night the phone remained in another room. Within 1 week, the episodes had ceased entirely. Her heart was fine. Her sleep was restored. The terror was gone completely. When she returned to the cardiologist for a follow-up appointment and explained what she had changed, he looked at her and said, I cannot account for it medically, but whatever you did, it worked. In the spirit realm, the witch who had been dispatching nightly attacks against Chiamaka had lost her entry point. The frequency altar was gone. The spirits that had been arriving at 2 in the morning had no place to land. That is the power of the electronics altar, and that is why you must be vigilant. Your phone is not simply a device in the spirit realm. It is a frequency, a vibration, and if it is not handled with spiritual awareness, it can become a portal through which the enemy accesses your health, your sleep, and your peace. The sacred writings instruct, Abstain from every form of evil. This includes the seemingly harmless habit of sleeping with your phone beside your body. When you remove the device, you remove the access point. When you establish boundaries, you establish protection, and your body responds to that protection with healing and rest. If you have been experiencing sleepless nights, if you wake with anxiety, if your mind races and refuses to quiet, write this in the comments right now. I remove every electronics altar from my bedroom. Write it because your declaration carries genuine power. Your sleep is about to be restored. I want to be honest with you. Sharing these testimonies is not easy for me. I remember being on the other side of every one of these stories. I remember the satisfaction our coven felt when a believer's prayers produced nothing, when their breakthrough was blocked, when they remained sick despite everything they tried. And now, understanding the damage I participated in, I am driven by an urgency to undo every bit of it. That is why I want to mention something we have developed called the 21-day Breakthrough Protocol. This is a complete system containing everything I learned through 14 years inside the kingdom of darkness about how dark forces block believers, and more importantly, the exact prayers, declarations, and spiritual strategies that dismantle every assignment, seal every portal, and activate breakthrough within 21 days. The protocol includes specific morning prayers, midnight declarations, targeted fasting strategies, and the precise sacred writings that dark spirits genuinely cannot withstand. The link is in the description below. If you are serious about walking in freedom, if you are tired of living under sustained attack, get the protocol today. Now let me tell you about the third hidden altar, and this is the most dangerous of all three. It is the inherited objects altar. What makes this altar so treacherous is that believers do not introduce these objects into their bedrooms by choice. They inherit them, they receive them as gifts. They are given to them by family members who have no understanding of what those objects carry in the spirit realm. And once those objects enter the bedroom, they become altars that give demonic forces generational access, the legal standing to afflict the believer and their entire bloodline with sickness that passes from one generation to the next. Let me explain how inherited objects become altars. Across African culture, it is deeply common to inherit items from deceased relatives: clothing, jewelry, furniture, decorative pieces. Many believers receive these items with pure and loving intention. They want to honor the memory of someone they loved. They want to preserve a connection to family history. But what they do not understand is that many of these objects carry spiritual attachments. If the person who owned that object was involved in traditional religious practice, if they consulted spirit practitioners, made ritual sacrifices, or were initiated into secret societies, that object is spiritually contaminated. It carries spiritual baggage that does not dissipate at death. And the moment that object enters your bedroom, you have established an altar that grants demonic forces legal access to your body and the bodies of those who come after you. I specialized in tracing inherited objects. When our coven wanted to afflict an entire family line, we did not pursue each member individually. That approach required too much effort and resources. Instead, we would identify objects that had traveled through the family across generations, objects that had been in the possession of an ancestor who held spiritual covenants with darkness. Once we identified those objects, we would activate the altars attached to them. And the moment that object entered a bedroom, the person sleeping there would begin experiencing the same afflictions their ancestors had experienced, the same diseases, the same mysterious pains, the same inexplicable sicknesses. This is the origin of so many family patterns of illness: cancer that recurs across generations, heart disease that strikes again and again in the same bloodline, diabetes, elevated blood pressure, mental illness cycling through families. Many of these are not merely genetic in nature, they are spiritual. They are generational curses being reinforced and sustained by inherited objects that function as active altars in bedrooms. Let me tell you about a family I monitored for years, the Okoli family from Wari. 3 consecutive generations of women in this family all suffered the same mysterious affliction: severe migraines that would last for days at a time. No physician could identify the cause. Medication provided only temporary relief. And the pattern was precise. Every woman in that family when she reached the age of 35, would begin experiencing these migraines. The grandmother had them, the mother had them, and when the daughter turned 35, they began for her as well. It was a generational cycle that no one could break. I was assigned to maintain the curse sustaining this pattern. My role was to ensure that the altar responsible for this affliction remained active. And the altar was an object, a carved wooden stool that had been passed through the family for over 60 years. It had originally belonged to the great-grandmother, who had served as a priestess in a traditional shrine before her death. That stool had been used in numerous rituals. It had been consecrated to specific spirits. It carried every form of spiritual contamination imaginable. When the great-grandmother died, the stool passed to her daughter, the grandmother, who placed it in her bedroom without any understanding of what it carried. The migraines began immediately, so severe they would leave her bedridden for days. She sought medical help. Nothing worked. She prayed. The migraines persisted. When the grandmother passed, the stool transferred to her daughter, the mother, who placed it in her own bedroom. The same migraines began with the same intensity and the same frequency. Again, physicians were baffled. Again, medication provided only temporary relief. Prayers brought momentary respite, but the affliction always returned. And when the daughter turned 35 and the migraines began for her as well, the family was devastated. 3 generations. The same curse, the same inexplicable suffering cycling through the bloodline with mechanical precision. Let me tell you about another case that illustrates just how dangerous inherited object altars can be. There was a young man named Chinedu in Asaba, 26 years old, newly married, full of anticipation about building a life with his wife. But 6 months after their wedding, his wife began experiencing something terrifying. Every single night around 3 in the morning, she would wake feeling as though an enormous weight was pressing down on her chest. She could not move, she could not speak. She could only lie there completely paralyzed, aware of a heavy, oppressive presence bearing down on her. This happened night after night with no variation. She described the attacks to Chinedu each morning. He assumed initially that she was experiencing vivid dreams, until one night the attack occurred while he was awake. He heard his wife gasping for air. He turned on the light and found her lying completely rigid, eyes wide and terrified, unable to move or speak. He shook her, called her name repeatedly, and after what felt like several agonizing minutes, she finally broke free from the paralysis. She wept, telling him that something evil was attacking her in their bedroom. They went to their pastor immediately. The pastor prayed with them, anointed their bedroom, and commanded every demonic spirit to leave. For 2 nights the attacks ceased. On the 3rd night they returned with greater intensity. Chinedu's wife began avoiding sleep entirely. She would remain awake as long as her body could endure it. But exhaustion would eventually claim her, and the moment she crossed into sleep, the attacks would begin again. I was not personally involved in this case, but a witch from a coven in Asaba was assigned to maintain the altar tormenting this couple. The altar was a necklace, a beautiful piece of beaded jewelry that Chinedu's wife had inherited from her grandmother after she passed. The grandmother had been a dedicated servant of a water spirit and had worn that necklace during rituals spanning more than 40 years. When she died, the family presented the necklace to Chinedu's wife as a cherished keepsake. She treasured it deeply and wore it frequently. At night she would place it on her nightstand directly beside where she slept. What she did not know was that the necklace carried a covenant. It had been consecrated to a water spirit, and that spirit held legal claim over anyone who wore it or kept it in close physical proximity. Every night that spirit would come through the necklace and press down upon her. The paralysis she experienced was not sleep paralysis in any medical sense. It was a deliberate demonic attack. The spirit was physically restraining her, attempting to obstruct her from conceiving children, attempting to suffocate a marriage before it could take root and flourish. After weeks of unrelenting torment, Chinedu and his wife attended a deliverance service at a different church. The minister leading the gathering paused mid-service and spoke directly to Chinedu's wife. He said, "You are carrying something that belonged to someone who served the water spirit. It is a necklace, and that necklace is the source of everything that has been attacking you at night. You must destroy it today." Chinedu's wife was shaken. She had never disclosed the necklace to anyone at that church, but every detail was accurate. She went home that day retrieved the necklace, broke it apart with pliers, and burned every bead in her backyard. She prayed over the ashes and formally renounced every covenant her grandmother had entered into with the water spirit. That night she slept peacefully for the first time in months. No paralysis, no presence, no attack, and from that night forward the attacks never returned. Within 3 months she conceived her first child. The spirit that had been sealing her womb was destroyed the moment the altar was removed. In the spirit realm, the witch assigned to that case lost every access point the moment the necklace was gone. The ancient sacred writings are explicit on this matter. Deuteronomy 7:25 instructs, "The images of their gods you are to burn in the fire. Do not covet the silver and gold on them, and do not take it for yourselves, or you will be ensnared by it, for it is detestable to the Most High your God." This instruction extends beyond physical idols to every object that has been consecrated to darkness. When you keep these objects, you maintain the covenant. When you destroy them, you sever the covenant. If you have items in your bedroom that belong to deceased relatives, especially relatives who were involved in traditional religion, ritual practice, or secret societies, those objects are functioning as active altars. They are granting demonic forces access to your health and your bloodline. You must remove them. You must destroy them. Do not retain them out of sentiment. Do not preserve them out of respect for the deceased. Those objects are sustaining your sickness, and I want you to do something right now. Write this in the comments below. I remove every inherited altar from my bedroom. Write it, because that declaration is severing generational curses in the spirit realm at this very moment. Your family line is about to experience a freedom that has never been known before. If what you have heard so far has opened your eyes, if you are beginning to understand why sickness has followed you for so long, please share this with someone who needs it. There are people in your family, in your church community, in your circle of friendship who are suffering from mysterious illnesses with no explanation. You can be the one to bring this revelation to them. Share it now. Now let me bring all of this together. These 3 altars, the mirror altar, the electronics altar, and the inherited objects altar, are not random household items. They are spiritual weapons that have been strategically deployed to sustain sickness in your life. The reason your prayers and fasting and deliverance services have not produced lasting healing is this: the altars were still present, the portals were still open, but today you have knowledge. You know what to look for, you know what to remove, and when you remove these altars and seal these portals, the legal access that demonic forces have had to your health will be permanently revoked. The sickness will have to leave, the affliction will have to lift, because its foundation has been destroyed. I have witnessed this happen again and again. I have seen believers who were sick for decades experience complete restoration within days of removing these altars. I have seen people walk away from chronic conditions that physicians declared incurable, not because the physicians were wrong, but because the sickness was not natural in origin. It was spiritual, and the moment the spiritual root was addressed, the physical manifestation dissolved. That is what is about to happen for you. When you remove these altars from your bedroom, you are shutting down the access points that have been draining your health. You are sealing the portals through which spirits of infirmity have been entering your body, and you are breaking the cycles of sickness that have been running through your family across generations. Now I want to pray with you. I want to activate breakthrough over your life right now. Say this out loud wherever you are, because when you speak these words, something shifts in the spirit realm. The altars begin to crumble, the portals begin to seal, and your body begins to respond to the healing power of the divine. Say this with me now. Eternal Father, I come before you in this moment. I thank you for opening my eyes to the hidden altars in my bedroom. I thank you for revealing the strategies of darkness against my health. I thank you that I am no longer ignorant of these devices. Right now I command every mirror altar in my bedroom to be destroyed. I seal every portal open through reflective surfaces. I revoke every legal access that demonic forces have gained through mirrors in my sleeping space. I declare that my sleep, my dreams, and my spirit are sealed under the covering of the divine. I command every electronics altar in my bedroom to be destroyed. I seal every portal open through devices and frequencies. I revoke every legal access that dark spirits have gained through technology positioned near my body at night. I declare that my mind, my nervous system, and my rest are protected by the authority of the Most High. I command every inherited object altar in my bedroom to be destroyed. I break every generational curse activated through objects passed down from my ancestors. I revoke every covenant my forefathers entered into with darkness. I declare that I and my household are completely free from every bloodline affliction, every family pattern of sickness, and every inherited disease. I declare that my bedroom is a sanctuary. It is a place of rest, peace, and healing. No demonic force can enter, no curse can operate, no sickness can remain. My bedroom is sealed under the authority of the divine. It is protected by the sacred covering of the eternal. It is guarded by the angels of the Most High. I decree that every spirit of infirmity assigned to my body is cancelled. Every affliction tormenting me is broken. Every mysterious illness that doctors could not diagnose is healed by the power of the divine. My body is a temple of the sacred spirit, and it will no longer serve as a dwelling place for demons. I declare complete restoration over my health. Strength is returning to my body. Energy is flowing through every system, every organ, every joint, every cell is being renewed by the power of the eternal. I am healed, I am whole, I am free. In the mighty name of the divine, amen. If you prayed that with me, something has genuinely shifted in the spirit realm. The altars in your bedroom have been addressed. The portals have been sealed. The legal access the enemy held over your health has been revoked. Now your responsibility is practical action. Remove the objects I have identified. Reposition your mirrors. Move your electronics. Destroy inherited items, and watch how your health begins to change. Here are practical steps for each altar. For the mirror altar, walk into your bedroom today and examine every mirror. If any mirror directly faces your bed, remove it immediately. Reposition it to face a different direction, or take it out of your bedroom completely. If your wardrobe has mirrored sliding doors that face your sleeping position, keep those doors closed at night or cover the mirrors with a cloth. Do not sleep with any reflective surface directly facing you. For the electronics altar, establish a new rule in your home beginning tonight. No phones, tablets, or laptops in the bedroom after 10 in the evening. Charge your devices in another room. If you use your phone as an alarm, purchase a dedicated alarm clock. Create a technology-free zone in your sleeping space. Your bedroom should be a place of genuine rest and spiritual peace, not a place of stimulation, digital noise, or open frequency portals. If you have been experiencing insomnia, anxiety, or restless sleep, you will notice a significant improvement within days of implementing this change. For the inherited objects altar, go through your bedroom and identify every item that was given to you by a deceased relative. Clothing, jewelry, furniture, decorations, anything that once belonged to someone who has passed away. If you know or have reason to believe that person was involved in traditional religion, ritual practice, witchcraft, or secret societies, remove those items immediately. Do not keep them, do not store them, destroy them completely, burn them if at all possible. As you destroy them, pray over the remains and declare that every covenant attached to those objects is permanently severed by the authority of the divine. These are not suggestions, these are instructions. If you want to walk in health, if you want to break the cycles of sickness in your life and your family line, you must take action. Faith without corresponding works is dead. You have prayed the prayer. Now do the work. Remove the altars, seal the portals, and watch how the divine restores your health. Now make one final declaration in the comments below. Write this: my bedroom is a sanctuary of healing and rest. When you write that, you are not making a simple statement. You are establishing a new spiritual reality. Your bedroom is no longer a territory where the enemy holds access. It is a sanctuary, a consecrated, holy place where healing flows and peace reigns without interruption. Write it in the comments right now. My bedroom is a sanctuary of healing and rest. Make that declaration and let it mark the beginning of your complete restoration. Before I close, subscribe to this channel, because what I have shared with you today is only the beginning. More revelations are coming, more strategies exposed, more weapons placed in your hands. The kingdom of darkness has operated in secrecy for far too long, but no longer. I am committed to exposing every strategy, every tactic, every concealed weapon, so that believers can live in genuine and sustained freedom. Click subscribe right now. Turn on the notification bell, because every video I release is another key to your breakthrough, and you cannot afford to miss a single one. Let me close with this. You are not a victim. You are not helpless. You are not at the mercy of sickness and disease. You are a child of the eternal, seated in authority over every demon, every curse, and every affliction. And when you walk in that authority, When you understand the strategies of the enemy and know precisely how to shut them down, you become completely unstoppable. The altars in your bedroom have been sustaining your sickness, but today you have the knowledge to remove them. Today you have the prayers to destroy them. Today you have the power to walk in complete health and freedom. Go into your bedroom, remove those altars, destroy those portals, and watch how the divine restores everything that darkness has stolen from your health. I am Miriam Adaeze. I was once a bedroom infiltration specialist in the kingdom of darkness. Now I am a voice of exposure in the hands of the Eternal, and I will not stop revealing these secrets until every believer walks free. May the Most High bless you, heal you, and restore you completely. You walk in divine health every day of your life. In the mighty name of the Eternal.